Hey, Ron.
Teresa.
Thanks for posting the link to this meeting. I think I must have looked in the wrong folder yesterday when I was looking at the calendar. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's still on the TLC calendar, so I just look
Yeah.
at that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think Rai created last year. I don't know when was the expiry date, but it's still running. Maybe we can just start. I don't know if anybody else will join. So also wanted to, it's like 7:30 Friday evening for me, and I wanted to push out a bit earlier. So
Yeah.
yeah, let me just share my screen and we can, I guess, make some quick decisions, and then yeah, if need be, we can have a particular meeting.
Sounds good.
So I just so I was looking at the Fabric OpenSS scorecard. So as we
Mhm.
sort of agreed upon yesterday, it makes sense. Is it visible or does it need to be made bigger? This diagram.
It's fun.
Okay. Okay, that is big enough. So
Yeah.
yeah, we have a bunch of things here. I'm just wondering if so for the purposes of state transitions, should we just get rid of some of the software criteria like documentation or I mean documentation or like ease of use or whether or not the maintainers are engaged with the community or whether they have a production use production application for the system. I think maybe these are things which can be considered as like software criteria, which does give a boost, but otherwise, as long as a project has documentation, I think that's probably enough, right? I don't think maybe we need to make that as a formal. I mean, we don't need to measure like the quality of documentation. That's going
I
to be hard to
don't think
do.
we will. Yeah. I mean, that would require somebody to actually go through and set up the project based on the documentation and see if there's issues and that sort of thing. And I just don't think anybody's going to have the time to do that or desire to do that.
Yeah. I guess it's something that the maintainers have an incentive to do anyway. They want the project to be used. So
Yep.
yeah. Okay, so then we should probably just look at the OpenSSF scores, the criteria on the scorecard, and just see what maps to what. This is what Dave had in his slides. I see. Let me just go to this particular. So yeah. Let me just go to this is the Fabric list, and just going through each of the criteria that we had that we had listed down last year. Let's just see which of them are covered. So legal is covered by, I guess, the license. Again, I'm not sure how you get 10 versus like I don't know how the like how when would you get a 5? Is it because is there some tool that checks whether or not different folders are covered? I don't know. So like for this particular criteria, if we had to take legal, as I think we agree that legal should be a part of the should be one of the criteria for either graduation or regression.
Mhm.
How do we like? What is the measure we give for that? Should we just say it should be a 10 or otherwise no, you don't get to graduate?
I think I think that makes sense. I just, beyond that, it's, I just don't think there's anything that you could look at, right? There's just nothing that makes sense. It's either there or it's not.
Okay. Yeah, and also when I see this criteria, I think what it's just seeing is that there's a license in the root folder of the GitHub repository. That's what it's doing it. That's what this number 1 seems to look like to me.
Yeah,
Looking at
and
it,
that it's a,
yeah.
it's a FSF or OSI recognized
Recognized
license. I think
license,
those
yeah.
are the two pieces, right?
Right, yeah. Okay, sorry, let me just quickly make some notes here.
Yeah, if you go into the details on this one, it does say the license requirement. So a detected license, copyright, or copying file name. 6 out of 10 points. So you automatically get 6 points if you've got a license file.
Okay,
If the detected file is at the top level directory, it adds 3 points to that. And then if it's an FSF or OSI license, you get an additional 1 point. So as long as you've got the license point, you're going to have, or the license file, you're going to have 6 points, which to me is really just then kind of a true false, right? If it's there, you're probably good.
yeah.
So
So we just go with 10 then, or you
yeah,
think
I think 10 is, I think 10 is good.
Okay, great. What's the next one? I think we have a diversity one. Contributors. Let's see. Contributors. Is this really true? Does Fabric have 23 different organizations? Not quite sure.
For contributors, probably, right? There's probably
Okay.
been people who have done that.
Yeah, I think maybe you have to look at the maintenance as well, right? So
Yeah, so based on this, the information in the scorecard, it says that to receive the highest score, the project must have had contributors from at least 3 companies in the last 30 commits.
okay,
And then it says each of those contributors must have had at least 5 commits in the last 30 commits. That's confusing, but
yeah, I think if so, what happens if a particular project just gets contributions from one organization's station for a month, even though it has a high diversity of maintainers, then the numbers here is going to be low, right?
yeah. So I'm wondering, let's see, we've got, I'm just thinking about which projects might have low diversity to see what sort of score it might have.
Let me try Cacti. Yeah, we have low score. I don't know if this is actually tracking it. I just submitted a PR to add a scorecard file. So let me see what happens after that. But yeah, yeah, it's actually I don't. I don't even know if it's tracking that. Actually, how is this being tracked? Do you know? I tried several different projects under Hyperledger. Some of them have a scorecard, others don't. And these, and I think only Fabric so far has a scorecard action.
So it looks like I find one for cacti,
Yeah,
but it doesn't have the contributor number in it.
yeah.
So it's generated June 3rd. That was recent. Hmm. So does it only show up if the
I think
value,
it's,
let's see.
or maybe you need to have the scorecard file because let's say I tried Caliper. Caliper also doesn't have that, and as far as I know,
Interesting. So Fabric is calculated with scorecard version 4.13.1.
okay,
And like Caliper is done with version 5 RC2. So it's a release candidate. So the question is,
uh,
did they get rid of that score in version 5?
maybe.
Yeah, I think these other ones are being generated by whatever the latest version is and not the specific version that Fabric calls out.
Okay. I follow the instructions from the OpenSSL scorecard GitHub page, just like Dave did, and the
Mm-hmm.
file that it generates is basically identical to what Dave has. So I think it's best to use that, and probably it will generate those numbers if we add the scorecard to the GitHub action. But Caliper doesn't have it right now, so it's clearly being monitored remotely, like that is. I don't see the scorecard action here. And there are other systems which don't have the scorecard at all.
Yeah.
Okay, Bezu does, but I tried. Indy
I
doesn't
think
have,
that's
Firefly doesn't have, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the key here is how do we um, how do we get these being generated for all of the projects with the same version so that we have the same information?
And we can just tell the maintainers this is what you need to do, and I think maybe yeah, we put
Yeah,
it on the maintenance channel whenever we do an upgrade.
that makes sense.
Maybe. Yeah. So for diversity, then let's assume that it will get tracked like as it's doing for fabric. But then this number is not necessarily as meaningful. I mean, it's meaningful to some extent, but we also need to take into account the diversity of maintenance, right? And
Yes.
and for that, we, shall we say that consider should we then have maybe we can create a GitHub action that parses the maintenance with MD file and then see whether or not like does a simple count of the number of unique calls.
We could definitely try that. I think the challenge that I've seen is that not everybody identifies the org in their maintainer file.
Uh,
Even though I think it's a requirement, I don't think that everybody does it. So again,
Yeah.
that may come down to getting people to actually follow the enforced rules.
I can say as a fallback, just I mean, the worst case is what we can do, right? Somebody who's
Yeah,
reviewing the
yep.
project will do that. So for the contributors metric, what are the grades we should give it? I don't think we require a 10.
Yeah, I'd really like to see this value for other projects to
Yeah.
see if 10 makes, like, is it a 10 or a 0, or do they give a, like, what are the values? Maybe I can do some research on that, Raman, take a look at the code and see beyond what they've described here, like, because all they've really described is what the highest score is, right? They don't really talk about they don't talk about, like, okay, how to get a 5 or a 3 or that sort of thing.
Right, right. And this number also, ideally, we should be able to tweak this a bit. Maybe you can say the number of last commits doesn't matter. Let's just look at, say, the last 3 months or something. If we can have something like that, might be useful.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the number there is like arbitrary,
It's arbitrary, yes.
right? Well, what does that really mean? 30 commits. Is that like a week's worth of data? Right. Like, I just don't, it depends on the project, right?
Yeah, yeah. You could get 30. Sometimes it's, the features are coming in thick and fast. You could get them in like 3 or 4 days. So.
Yeah, yeah.
The next one. Release day mapper to packaging. Let's see what that is. I think strictly speaking, this is not, I mean, this is a good thing to measure, but what we wanted to measure also was whether the project is uh, pushing out timely releases or frequent releases. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
So.
I mean, maybe we could, as I'm thinking about this, I'm wondering, like, could we use what's being done in the scorecard plus add some additional checks? Right, because we should be there. I'm pretty sure there's a GitHub API to determine like number of releases.
Yeah.
So we could do something where, you know, what's the number of releases in the last year or the last 3 months or whatever that number is that we want to be looking at.
So can we like write a script or action that checks time since last release?
Yeah.
So for the packaging, what's the so this seems like a binary criteria. Okay. Okay, so does this mean that if there is any kind of publish action, say to NPM, will we get a high score here? Versus?
It feels like this one's a bit like we check one thing and if it's there, then we give it to you. We give you the 10, right?
The full 10, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it seems. Okay. So maybe we should consider this more of a soft criteria. I think then, yeah, if it's so easy to get a 10, probably you should mandate it then. Because if you're not publishing anything, then that's a bad sign, I guess.
Yeah, obviously there's that, but if you publish one thing, like that just doesn't seem like what we were intending, right?
Right. Okay, maybe tentatively we'll consider that we require a 10 for packaging, and also we will use we'll also check the frequency of releases, which is yet to be determined with the threshold that is. So I think maybe this can be automated. Then diversity maybe not be completely automated, but this probably might. I'll have to check this. Maybe I'll try to see if I can write an action for this.
Okay. I mean, even if it's not an action, if it's you know, we've got a lab called Hyperledger Community Management Tools, and that's where I create the org dashboard script. So you know, it's a Python script that basically uses the GitHub GraphQL to get information. We could do something similar, right? Where we pull information out of GitHub and see when the releases have been, right? To know, one, how many have we had, and two, what is the frequency and that sort of thing, and like when was the last one. So I think there's ways that we can get the information, and then we just need to know how we want to interpret that information. As you know, is this a green, is this a yellow, is this a red sort of issue?
Yep, that would work. So it's not a GitHub action, but it's just some script that anybody can run, right?
Yep.
Maybe we should put the scripts inside the TLC folder and like package in such a way that it can be used by anybody.
Yeah, definitely. Because what I'm thinking we could do even, right, is once we figure out what it is that we want to display, we
Yeah.
could, one, either run it on a, regular basis, or two, have us run it whenever we're doing a quarterly report.
Yes.
Right, as an input for the quarter, or maybe it is the quarterly report for all that matters, right? And then we can take a look at it and see, like, okay, what does this look like?
That makes sense. Okay. Testing. Sorry, maybe do one more, and because we are close to the half-hour mark, I need to go somewhere today a bit early. So maybe we'll do one more, and then we can resume next time.
Yeah, no worries.
Testing and CI/CD is CI test, dangerous workflows, token permissions. CI tests. Token permissions. I think this also might be a bit complicated, but probably we can. I think the testing and CI/CD should be covered by these in some way. I don't think we need any other maybe subjective criteria probably.
Yeah.
The highest score is awarded on all workflows avoid the dangerous code patterns. I think maybe we should just make this a requirement then.
Yeah, I would say definitely a requirement.
Next one, token permission. I just wonder, is the dangerous workflow, is it testing criteria? Is it security?
It's probably security.
Security, right?
Yeah. Same with the token permissions. I feel like that's more security focused.
And we require 10 for this too. Let's see. The highest score rewarded on all the permission definitions in each workflow YAML file are set as read only at the top level. And Required right permission. I think this is reasonable. I think even if a project doesn't have the high score, it's quite easy to remediate.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that's something that should be easy to fix and get to a 10.
Um, yeah, let's take a look at that.
So this feels more like this exists versus this exists and is good, but I don't think we're
Yeah.
going to get to the place where we could check whether or not their testing is good.
So unless we require test for code coverage.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we could, I mean, that should be something that's doable, right? Test coverage.
Yeah. I mean, one of my previous jobs, they actually required us to fix the test at one point so that we had a code coverage of 60% at least. So,
Mhm.
but I don't know if we should pick an arbitrary number like that. I think maintainers will complain. So, and I know for a fact, even within Cacti, a lot of code is not covered anywhere close to 60%. So, so what should we do? We should table this for now. I mean, I don't know how to evaluate the CI test criteria.
Yeah, let's think about this one some more. And we'll talk about it again at the next piece. But obviously, I think CI tests should have a 10. But yeah, then what else do we want to check? I think is the question.
Yeah. Yeah, to see if 10 is easily attainable. Mm, yeah, and maybe this is something I think we discussed this point sometime last year about code coverage, and I think some people commented that we should just leave it up to the maintainers. So,
Mm,
but we can raise the question again, see what
Yep.
response we get. Okay, maybe we'll stop for now and we'll continue the next time.
Okay, sounds good.
Great. Thanks, Tracy. I think this
Yep.
some good
Have a
progress
great
here.
weekend.
You too. Bye.